want to talk about the three top softer skills. There are many softer skills, but if you have to pick the top three softer skills, what are these? And let's go one by one quickly. Tell me about the top softer skill from your perspective, and how can people develop that softer skill starting today or tomorrow or
Yeah.
next week. And I'll interject to share something, but I want to start first with you and tell us your top number one softer skill, how you developed it, how do you help other people develop that, any strategies, any resources, or any approaches that you suggest to the audience.
Yeah, and it's very hard to pick the top three skills because even just in the book I have like 20 plus that I want to address, and I was thinking that there were even
I
more.
have 12 of them and I understand very tough, but if you have to pick,
We need more
just
books.
pick one. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and so and if you asked me this question yesterday, I probably given you a different answer as well. So for the ones I'm thinking today are listening, of course, because I think that also kind of encompasses empathy and the importance of understanding where the other comes from. So as a skill, it's very important because let's say we're bad at it a lot of times, and we need to be better at listening because it saves time and it helps us understand the needs of the others and learn and become better learners too. So that's one. Also, I was thinking of another one that
Before you
yeah.
go, Yadi, we will go one by one. I want to add something, especially some of the techniques that I have used. I was so bad. I was listening on level one.
Mhm.
And the first time I realized when I was bad, I read a book by John C. Maxwell. He is one of the leadership gurus. In his book, he talked about how he used to struggle to listen, and he started to go with a notepad whenever he has a meeting, a conversation with someone, and he used to write capital L for listening, L on the top right corner of his notepad,
Okay.
sitting there. He listens when he's tempted to interfere, to listen at level one. He didn't say level one, but I understand that he was listening at level one, as I used to be. He looked at the capital L on his notebook, and that reminds him not to interfere, listen, and so on. I used that, it helped me. I remember one time I had this technical professionals, I was their supervisor, and they start to give me some compliments. Az, you are a great listener, you listen and so on. They didn't know I was writing L
Oh,
trying to listen.
that's a good
And
advice.
at one point I felt embarrassed. Look, these guys think I'm listening and it's natural to me. They didn't know behind the scene how I struggle. So I admitted, I told them, I know you guys, thank you. You appreciate that. I'm listening to you, but I don't want to take credit. And I brought out the notepad and I showed them, this is how I discipline myself to learn.
That's
They laughed about it. Oh, okay, you were right. Fake it until you make it. You were faking it. Why didn't you tell us before? I
hmm
said, I was learning,
yeah.
which means you have to use some techniques until you learn listening.
Yeah.
Right now, even today, after working on my listening, I discipline myself. Before I go and meet someone, I take time. It could be while I'm driving or dressing.
hmm
I need to listen. I remind myself, look, I have to be present. I have to forget everything. And when I go there, when I'm drifted, when I am not listening, I immediately catch myself. Sometimes I apologize. Sorry, I was thinking something I lost because I may already know that I'm lost.
Yeah.
Or sometimes if I know them, I tell them, look, sometimes I struggle to listen. And if you catch me not listening to you or interrupting you and making it about me, please just slap in my face and then just tell me, listen, easy. I'm
hmm
just sharing some of the things that I have been using. Any technique, any approach that you used for you to improve your listening ability?
Yeah, the one I refer to in terms of reflecting back, because that's some is a technique that therapists use, like on coaches, when it comes to working with teams. That hey, if assuming that people already have the, let's say, the response within them. So when it comes to listening, the technique that I have helping a lot with my husband as well was when hearing something, repeating back what they're saying, and that definitely saves a lot of time. Also, trying to think of, there was another one for listening on the with the teams, particularly when in meeting or in meeting settings. It's just important to give the people the time to pause, um, to let them respond. Like when you ask a question to a group and perhaps you don't hear about them immediately, instead of just rambling and going on, you really take a pause. Don't be afraid of silence during a meeting or during a conversation. So for me, that I'm always go, 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 taking that time to, like, let me just pause, don't respond if they haven't responded. That there are a lot of insights when it comes to just taking that deliberate pause to wait to hear what the person is saying, and the best conversations come from that.
I love it. This is also very important in virtual. Sometimes myself, I facilitate. If a comment is not coming, if the answers are not coming, I'm tempted to jump in.
Yes.
But I learned that and I start to listen, telling them, hey, I'm waiting for your answers. Maybe the bandwidth, maybe the technology is delaying them, and I wait for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Immediately I start to receive a lot of comment, a lot of questions. But in the past, I used to just rush.
Me too. Yes.
Now I just stop, mention it. I'm waiting for your answers. Maybe you are typing, or maybe Zoom is delaying it, stuff like that. Let's go to the second one. What is your second pick?
Yes.
So far, so
So.
good. I agree with you. Listening, especially for people like me, yeah,
Mhm.
listening should be number one. What is your second pick?
Yeah, in this particular times, because there's so many, again, so many skills, but I think the conflict management, and not necessarily seeking conflict resolution, but the ability to manage a conflict that involves, of course, us being able to temper ourselves if we disagree with someone, and just kind of our storm out of the room or something along those lines. There's a series of, there are books that experts have talked to in terms of how to manage conflict effectively, and particularly in a team setting, we need to develop all these tactics that are available to manage conflict effectively and not be afraid of it. Because when it's a team that is conflict free, quote unquote, it's not necessarily that's conflict free. It's just that there's a lot of underlying either anger or indifference. If there is a team that is able to manage conflict, like if there's a conflict, like, okay, we differ on ideas, let's talk about it, let's expand about it, without having to turn into insults or screaming matches. I think it's very important for have an environment and a safe place in a workplace to be able to, like, okay, we disagree, let's talk about it. The conversation could get lively, but it doesn't mean that, that we need to, go in and calm it down. It's just like innovation could result from that. So anything that we can do to manage conflict is, or have all those tools and tactics to manage conflict, are very critical today.
Definitely, I agree with you. If there is no conflict, I tell teams, if there is no conflict in
Mhm.
your team, means the team is dead. The only place where you don't see conflict is in the graveyard.
Mhm,
As long as
exactly.
you have two or more people working together, some
Yeah.
form of conflict exists. And
Mm,
I agree with you. One thing that helped me to realize was I took an assessment called TKI,
mm,
a free version and also paid version. I used both. Initially, when I took that assessment, I could be able to know my most preferred mode when I'm in conflict. And that assessment tells you your most preferred mode and your least preferred mode. Mine that time was avoiding was my top preferred mode, which means
mhm.
if we enter into conflict, my first approach is avoid it.
Yeah, that's bad.
Partly it worked with my personality because I have preference for introversion, and therefore I just take walk or just find excuse to stop that conversation because I want to avoid it. I don't want to have conflict. And then maybe after an hour, maybe after a day, I may come back. In
Yeah.
the past, I used to be very passive aggressive. I
Hmm.
avoid it initially. When I come back, you better hide. Sometimes I come like this
Yeah.
passive aggressive, but I realize that that's my mode. But I realized that as a leader, I can't always avoid.
Hmm.
Sometimes I need to be assertive.
Yeah.
And I remember the struggle I had. I recruited some of my close friends, telling them that I realized from this assessment that my to go to mode is avoiding, but I don't want to avoid going forward. For every disagreement that we're going to have, I want to be more assertive,
Hmm.
more competing, and please don't take it personal. And I remember the next day or so somebody said, let's go to eat lunch here, and I asserted,
Hmm.
and I said, why should we go there? What about this one? And they were
Hmm.
like, but initially it was hard for me. You could
Yeah.
hear from my voice that
Hmm.
I was struggling because I was a little bit like tight. No, why
Yeah.
should we go there? Why
Yeah.
don't you? And then I was working on how to be assertive without
Yes.
damaging the relationship. Again, what I'm doing is I don't want people to assume that by just attending workshops on conflict resolution or by just picking some tricks, you cannot fix it. You have to understand
Hmm.
first the background, the science. We
Yeah.
all have most preferred mode, but we need to figure out how to develop the other modes.
Yeah.
And depending on the situation, the person you are interacting with, you may decide, you know what, I'm gonna avoid. Maybe I want to compete, or maybe I need to quickly compromise. Maybe I need to avoid it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I need to accommodate.
Hmm.
That's very, very helpful. And I encourage everybody the TKI assessment.
Okay.
They have a free version. They can try that one.
Yeah. No, that's great. And when you mentioned there about um the the fact of when do we choose to avoid a conflict, and I was in the podcast talking with some expert about it, that one thing that could help us define, okay, what's the cost of avoiding the conflict or confronting the conflict. So we need to evaluate, like, okay, if I keep avoiding this
Exactly.
conflict, what's it going to cost me? My mental sanity, the outcome of work. So we have to think of those things to be able to realize, like, okay, the costs are too high, we need to address it. So
Exactly.
that's a kind of a good measure that we need to identify, because it is very comfortable. Like, I'll just avoid conflict and
Yeah.
then it'll magically disappear. Like,
It goes
no,
away.
not at
It
all.
doesn't go.
Yeah, not
Now,
at
what I
all.
do is when I'm in conflict, I quickly think while I'm on my feet, trying to figure out how do I need to respond to this.
Hmm.
I actually tell myself inside of me, they don't hear me, easy, okay, I know you prefer to avoid. I know that's your to go to, but
Yeah.
what do you think we should do now?
Yeah.
At least by posing it, this is the situation, this is the person,
Yeah.
how should I respond? That little pause gonna
Hmm.
make a huge difference because you may say something that you may regret, or you may avoid an opportunity where you could have been assertive, so that you send a message, whatever you do. Before we finish, I want to hear the third one and the
Yes.
last one. Yeah,
Yeah, so I think particularly in these times, the skill to adapt. Adapting is a skill, because even though we may think that naturally we are people that could just like, hey, I love change. I could just be, going to a new country and it will be perfect for me, or a new role. I'm good with that. In some cases, that could be the case, but in other cases, regularly, we're not comfortable with change or adapting to change. So having that skill set of, for example, if situation changes at work, we need to be able to identify, like, okay, what would be good from this situation, and be able to refine, to identify those things that could be beneficial, and find perhaps the good in that, and identify what skills that I have right now could help you with that change that is coming. So those are just some examples of how can we develop the ability to adapt, and which also involves the ability to learn new things. So in this market that we're so scared, because changes are coming, not just AI specifically, but just reorganization in organizations, or it's our roles. We just have to accept the fact that change will be coming. It will be good. So now I need to develop the ability to adapt. It's not always comfortable. I need to do day-to-day things that get me out of that comfort zone, and that's what helps us grow. So it's very important to learn how to adapt.